Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Banner Buzz, our weekly news podcast. I'm Keith Domke, managing editor of the Banner Press, and I'm just thrilled to introduce our guest today. Many of you already know her, but in case you don't, this is Brooke Trahan from Brenham ISD. Brooke, thank you. I know you're a busy lady, maybe one of the busiest ladies in this town at times, but appreciate you taking the time, and happy holidays to you as well. And happy holidays to everybody else out there. So Brooke is the Chief Communications and Engagement Officer for Brenham ISD. And before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please, your background?
Absolutely. So not only do I work for Brenham ISD, but I am a proud product of Brenham ISD. So my family actually moved here. First, my dad and my sister actually in the late 80s. He started PI Components here. That's now Emerson. Mm-hmm. And then we all came. So I've been going through school here, all K through 12, a proud graduate. I went and did my undergrad at Stephen F. Austin, played soccer in college, double majored in fine arts education or pedagogy. Finished that up, started teaching initially in Killeen, Texas.
Okay.
Moved back home in 2014 with my husband. And at that time, I taught in Sealy. So for 6 years, the neighboring county in Austin County, I taught in Sealy. And then in 2020, I was like, okay, it's time to see if there's something for home. And so I went back to the high school where my old art teacher who inspired me years and years ago to pursue fine arts, teaching in that same classroom as the teacher for a couple years. Very involved in a lot of community projects ever since I've moved home, nonprofits. And then initially, my first year at Brenham ISD, I was picked out for the high school leadership team, so I was heavily involved from that aspect. Okay. And then I was a teacher member for the initial bond group because I was advising on fine arts and CTE with my experience. And then slowly kind of segued over to central office doing communications and community engagement. And then that's just been evolving the last 3-ish years.
And I know you've taken that position, you've elevated it quite a bit. Even in my tenure here, I've noticed how you just keep getting more busier and busier by more things you take on, and you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you so much.
So you went from being an art teacher to the central office and the communications position.
Yes. So initially it was a specialist. And I'll be honest, I actually was interested in that role when I first left Sealy. So there was vacancy. At the time, though, Dr. Jackson was still here. Okay. And they went ahead and kind of hired someone else for that position. And then all the leadership changed. So I was happy to be at the high school. And, I think it's really important to build interpersonal relationships anywhere you are.
Of course.
And the fastest way to do that in the community, I feel like, is being in the classroom because I get to see all the teachers. I get to work with kids, talk to their parents, go to events. And then people, got to see me for a while in Brenham. Boots on the ground, because at Sealy, I had been a 2-time Teacher of the Year for the district over there.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't know that.
So, my husband was like, that's not going to mean anything when you get to Brenham. You're going to have to do all the same work there and let them know how much you love kids and education and everything. So I did, and I think that showed in a lot of ways, being asked to put on beam boards and projects and initiatives pretty quickly. And then I was excited when the specialist role, because just being from the county and Brenham, I'm very passionate. I'm passionate about serving, and I saw it as an opportunity to expand my reach and my impact for the community. And I'm a mother of 2 young girls in our system. I have both nieces and nephews here. My colleagues, I can't go anywhere without knowing, somebody's kid somewhere, and they're our future. So it's an honor to be able to have a hand in that and help serve our community.
Well, it's kind of neat too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you were getting going in your career teaching and so forth, was it kind of a goal to eventually end up back here, or did it just kind of happen?
It was kind of a mix. So
Okay.
I actually, the year that I finished my undergrad, because I had spent so many years studying art, I wanted to go see it. So I had saved up money during college and high school, and I went. So actually, when that job opened, I wasn't here. So I just waited, because in the art world, most of the time, we know when an art teacher finds a position they like in a district, they'll stay there for, as I said, my teacher was there for 40 years. So I was just kind of waiting for the time. And then obviously having two kids, once I had both of the girls, the commute to Sealy was becoming a little bit more challenging. I absolutely loved the community and my colleagues there. And then it just so happened that the position opened up. So some of my friends in Brenham were like, hey, I don't know if you've heard, the art teacher's open. And so I was happy. But also just from a family aspect, like I feel like Brenham and Washington County really shaped who I am, the balance of the small town community with the big town. And I really wanted that. The world is growing so fast. Technology is going so fast. Yeah. And honestly, as a parent, it's reassuring to me to, give my kids those country roots, but love when somebody in the community is like, oh, I saw your girls at the library this week, or I got to see them perform. And that's just, part of what I love about Brenham, but what I value as a parent and raising a family here is really important to me.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you that my youngest daughter is in the Sealy.
Oh, no, I don't think I knew that.
And she's teaching art.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So, small world. But anyway, she loves it there, too. And she's at the junior high.
Okay, that's fantastic.
So that's not what we're here to talk about. It's kind of a neat little connection. So Chief Communications and Engagement Officer, that's quite a title and tough to fit on a business card.
Oh, yeah.
But tell us, what does that mean? What are you all responsible for within Brenham ISD? If we have enough time for you to tell me anything.
I know. No, I've had to actually give this spiel a little bit lately. It's kind of, it is a broad, I'd say like a cast net for the district and the community, because on the communication side, you obviously have internal and external communications. And to be effective at those things, I have to be very involved in all of the campuses and all the departments.
Sure you do.
To understand and digest what's happening and the dynamics, to be able to communicate that to people outside of education or outside of our schoolhouse to understand that. Crisis communication, is obviously a big one these days. We have people's most precious,
of course,
thing ever is their children.
Right.
So they're constantly wanting and needing to be informed in a timely manner when there's something that arises. Managing the brand, just like any business, colors, brand identity, website, pamphlets, anything that goes into production, anything that's digitally. So there's so much with communication and marketing and media on that side, media relationships.
And we'll get into that a little bit more here in a little bit.
Yeah, all of that. And then community engagement is another very, very broad one because it's fostering partners, with business leaders, civic leaders, stakeholder groups for input, like right now we've been meeting with different stakeholder groups to work on the calendar for the 25-26 school year. And then also trying to do initiatives to help bridge the gap between our kids in the community, but also having the kids, or the community back in the schools as well. So it's a lot.
Makes me tired just listening to all you do.
I know, I'm sure I forgot something.
Yeah,
Someone's going to tell me, but...
So if there's such a thing as a typical day for you, which maybe there isn't, but and every day I know is different, but what do you try to accomplish day in and day out? How does a typical day go if there is such a thing?
Yeah. So honestly, I would love to say there is, but there isn't. My little team, who's phenomenal, we joke, we use the word pivot all the time, because even on days that we have, we meet at the end of the day and I'm like, we're going to do X, Y, Z, have a press release going, update a radio ad, accompany the superintendent, to an advisory council or something like that. Something happens. And when you have 5,000 kids and their families that are connected to that, in addition with 800 employees, there's usually something happening. So that's why we always joke pivot, because the priorities can change in an instant. So it could be anything from building out graphic design, meeting with our webmaster to make sure that the newest compliance and legislation and what has to be posted is up, to advising the superintendent on speaking notes or legislative priorities that were just filed. So it's pretty dynamic, but I think that's why I love it so much.
Sure.
Not just the service to the community. I find it very rewarding, but that's why I was drawn to art. It wasn't a narrow lane. I could pivot at any time and incorporate more math or science or mediums. And in this role is like that as well. You're definitely not getting bored if you're with me on my team.
That's right.
It can be drinking out of a fire hose sometimes, but it's great. And I just feel like it all brings our team together as well. So yeah, not a typical day. It's constantly something I'm reevaluating. At the end of the day, I kind of put the top things when I start the day, and just go from there. And then, my day's hijacked usually a few days of the week.
Including with questions from me sometimes. Anyway. So I know you talked about your communications team, but you're also part of the district's administrative team that includes the superintendent and a handful of other key personnel.
Yes.
So in doing what you have to do, I know you have staff meetings, admin staff meetings and all that, but how do you keep up to date with, you're getting information from maybe a dozen different directions at the same time, depending on schools and other administrators and so forth. So, and obviously it's essential that you all keep each other informed, but
absolutely.
Is that just kind of an ongoing process, or how does all that kind of develop?
Yeah. It's an ongoing process, but it's also, having systems in place and process and procedures and knowing how to refine that. So you mentioned, we have administrative meetings. So every other week I'm with principals and all of the directors, and we're talking about, everybody's kind of siloed sometimes, like you're seeing your lane, and then it's like, okay, we need to come together pretty regularly to see what's going on in your lane, what's going on in your lane. How does this impact other people's lanes that they might have not anticipated because they don't live in that world? So I do that. I also serve on with Miss Johnson, doing the head of department meetings each week to see, what's happening in maintenance, tech, and all of those things. I meet regularly with the cabinet every Friday, which is the four of us executive members and the superintendent, to go over stuff. And then within my team, there are certain things that I that go to them first, and then we have a system in place to know what needs to come to me, or what I might need to advise on, or connect the dots. And then also being out in the community is also a big piece of that. But I'm just so blessed. I love the team that we have at Brenham ISD. Sure. Under Mr. Gillentine's leadership, it's really fostered a true sense of collaboration. I feel like we come together with positive intent, both in the community a lot more and inside our schools and our administrative teams more. That's just like, hey, I need to be upfront and honest with you so that you can receive this, and we can do what's best for our community, even though we might have different perspectives and understanding. And that's really what it takes for, this position, but a school district to be successful.
Sure. Boy, I tell you. You're watching the Banner Buzz podcast with me, Keith Domke, managing editor, and our special guest, Brooke Trahan, communications and engagement specialist for Brenham ISD. So as we continue, this past year, all of you guys over there at Brenham ISD just worked extremely hard, and that's probably even an understatement, to make some cuts in many areas to make ends meet, and of course nothing affecting the education of the students.
Absolutely.
It was a long and tedious and painstaking process, but the incredible amount of work you all did led to the district being able to pass a balanced budget. Absolutely. Which is critically important.
Absolutely.
So again, it took a lot of teamwork from a lot of people. So what was your role in that process?
So I played a unique and probably dynamic role that was a little bit more circumstantial, because what I've noticed in my professional groups is this role is not only shaped by the person in it and their skill set, but really by the superintendent and their needs and the dynamic makeup of the school district. So in this case, my primary role in budget obviously is to understand the process, make sure anticipating things that need to be communicated internally, the timeliness, externally, presentation and communication to the board, the media, and the public for consumption, because budget can get dense, especially when we're talking about public education.
Sure.
But I had a unique role in the fact that we did go through so many changes in Brenham ISD. So I worked with the previous superintendent and the previous CFO. And then when we had an interim CFO, I was in charge of working with him and kind of helping him through the processes. So this time around, I was kind of the connector of saying, okay, we got to look at whole picture from the previous CFO, the interim CFO, and the new CFO. I had documents and books literally for every campus and every budget, trying to keep notes. And most of those notes were at the time for communication purposes, but they ended up yielding a lot of value in the fact of helping put people puzzle pieces together, because sometimes a spreadsheet doesn't always tell the story.
Right.
But I might have had a note, oh, we just got the Cycle 2 grant, so it looks like we didn't budget here, but really we were getting federal money because we were awarded a grant that was going to be put into that budget later. So yes, we still need to account for that. And then, like you said, working on the communication piece, because it is a lot of information to scaffold, and especially when you're getting this just little blip for the community to kind of digest that. And that's an ongoing process.
So to kind of continue on that thought, being the communications person, part of a small team of, people you work with and are responsible for. But, communications person, director or whatever, is always one of the most important people in a business organization, just because of what you're responsible for. And you've touched on a lot of that already. So, but I mean, you kind of have a more than two, but I'm going to get at kind of a two-prong approach here. First of all, so when you need to communicate information to students and parents and the community and even teachers within the district and all that, I know you have different avenues to do that, but can you kind of explain what those are a little bit and how it works?
Well, I can't speak to this without bringing up Parent Square, the avenue, because that was probably the first big initiative that I brought in just a couple months into the job, because as I told you, I was a teacher in the classroom, so I very much understood the barriers in the communication from the teacher lens. And one of those also being the translation piece. We're a very diverse community. But then also being a parent, I have two kids, and sometimes, it's putting something in the backpack. Sometimes it was like something called Class Dojo or Remind. So my first big thing to help facilitate that was I brought in a brand new messaging platform called Parent Square. So through Parent Square, we have the ability to do posts, alerts. We can post it to social media. We can post it directly to your cell phone. We can send you an email. We can send you a phone call, all kind of in one space. And I can identify any group. I could say Keith Domke's third period class if there was an incident specific to you. Or, for example, we had, a pursuit with the PD that one day.
Right.
And we had a couple campuses went to hold. So I was able to select, Krause, Brenham Middle School, and those things. And then anything that's going out to parents and families, I pretty much instantaneously share with the media so that y'all can help partner with us to ensure effective communication. And then obviously a lot of people are on social media. So it goes there. But they know usually to get with me if there's something developing. I mean, and like I said, we have 5,000 kids and 800 employees. Something's always developing.
So So the parent portal then is critically important and something really that's been fantastic for you to bring into the district as far as the communication piece. But allow me to turn to the media specific if I can, because that's what I do, and I work closely with you in order to get some of that information that you've just talked about. So as a career journalist, I've worked at several newspapers in my career, and it's always kind of interesting to me that everybody's trying to be transparent.
Yes.
But there's kind of different ways that transparency is approached. I've worked in communities where entities give me incredible amount of information, and then in other entities that don't give very much, and they still say they're being transparent. And I'm not here to debate that or anything like that. But what I'm curious about is, as a member of the media, our job is to be the messenger and to get out the most accurate and detailed information as we can from the source we need to work with, whether that's the city, county, or the school district. So, and so I wouldn't want to say really bugging you, but sometimes it's bugging you. Well, what can you tell us? What, give, and then you give us something. Can you give us a little bit more than that? And blah, 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 blah. So how do you take all that into consideration and work with the media to make sure you're giving us the best you can, depending on the situation, yet there's things you can't release and all that, and still trying to be transparent. How does that process work for you?
So, it is juggling because it is very situational, because unlike other public entities, we have children. So a lot of times if we have something that's involving a student or even a staff member, we have to look at state policy, board policy from a legality aspect when it's going outside, publicly. A lot of times people don't realize, if there's an investigation going on, per the PD or whoever entity we're working with, we're not allowed to release certain things, or we can't get ahead or release something that could impact their investigation.
Sure.
So there's a lot of variables. And then honestly, I'll say the laws as far as public information and things like that are constantly changing. Literally every year I've been in this position. The legislation just opened up, I think it was November 12th, and I got a notification of a summary of the bills. And just that day, there was 118 filed. So two, it's a revolving door to see what is with student data, staff data, legislation, board policy, which also changes every year depending on the law. But our biggest goal is to make sure that we collaborate with y'all when we, as much as possible when we're able to help y'all understand the scope and complexity, to help you be a partner with us, to help spread the important information with our community as another conduit.
And we appreciate, obviously partnerships is the key for both of us.
Yes.
And we appreciate the partnership and how you help us as best you can, and just continue to allow us to bug you. Hey, Brooke, what else can you tell us? So I want to ask you a specific question. Several months ago, I don't remember exactly when it is, you brought a project to the Board of Trustees about this fancy new scoreboard that has video capabilities, replay. There's a lot of bells and whistles to it. I mean, I don't even remember all of them.
Yeah.
So I think you brought it to the board to review, look at, kind of the starting process, a couple of months and everything.
Yes.
So, and then we haven't heard anything about that for a little while. So what happened to that, or what's the date? What's the status on that?
So we're still working on that. And so the board had asked us to get basically letters of intents and agreements for all of the companies that we're working with. And then when we have it completely funded or more, then we will bring it to the board. I think a lot of our community enjoyed traveling to Cub Stadium in Waller, who has one. And that was the first time they've actually got to see clips of our kids. And I know that's not what it's all about, but between us being halfway between Austin and Houston, we get lots of solicitation for just Cub Stadium rental. And the missed opportunities, because a lot of them who have playoff games want they want the promos, they want the gifts and the playbacks and things. That's lost revenue for the district. I'm sure y'all saw just this week, North Dallas is closing 4 elementaries because they're going to be short several millions of dollars. So it's really a way to look at how we can increase revenue, because as a public entity, our hands are very limited. But again, as being somebody who serves the district and is from the district, I'm excited if that does to come fruition, because I want people not just to see their kids crossing the stage up close on there. I think about all the amazing partnerships we could do with it, like having a community movie night and having everybody come in there, using part of that revenue to, maybe towards teacher bumps or low income students who need additional food or support. There's a lot more opportunity that would be available to us, and that the scoreboard we currently have is aging out. And again, when we have to repair that, that's another cost, to the district. So
eventually it'll come back once you have it kind of funded through sponsorships and businesses and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Well, we're running out of time, but I want to make sure I ask you kind of a switch. We're going to switch gears a little bit. And, you mentioned you were an art teacher and all that. And several months ago, I don't remember what it was, I was surprised to learn when I came into your office that you've been involved heavily in downtown Brenham, including some of the murals and all that. So just briefly, just tell us a little bit about that involvement and what all you've done and so forth.
So about 9 years ago, Brad Stuffelbein, who's the original owner of Home Sweet Farm, brainchild, the Texas Arts and Music Festival. And at the time I was teaching in Sealy, and they were just trying to kind of figure out the different dynamics of what they wanted. But they knew that they wanted to support the arts and give back. And so somehow at a meeting, my name got brought up, and I started bringing students. And then the next thing I know, they were like, can you start coordinating student groups to come down here? And then I was formally offered to be on the board, and they were like, hey, you have the background, art people, contracts and how this works. Could you take over facilitating? So I've been a board member most of the years. And so I've been hiring the artist, approving, working with the building owners, getting the students out there for the enrichment day. And then it's super cool because it's giving back. So a lot of the artists work with us. And so a lot of times they'll ask me to help paint the cardinal and the longhorn. I was like, can I please paint that?
There you go. Cardinals. There you go.
So it's cool to see I have a hand. And then I had a collaborative project on the little building across from Must Be Heaven is my mural. And then I've also painted the entire inside of Must Be Heaven and the backdrop. I still get calls and stuff all the time. I actually have a meeting after this with the fire station for a new mural for them. So I feel like I've become a community resource for mural art and community engagement art projects.
Multi-talented. So when you go to Must Be Heaven or around town, assuming you sign some of these, look for Brooke's name and you'll find her. So it's time for us to wrap up. And I'm sorry, there were a few other questions, but maybe we can bring you back sometime and continue this discussion. But folks, you've been watching the Banner Buzz podcast. I'm Keith Domke, managing editor of the Banner Press, and I'd like to really thank Brooke Trahan from Brenham ISD for being my guest. Thank you very much. I enjoy talking to you, and I always enjoy talking to you whenever our paths cross. And a reminder that the Banner Press, we're proud to be Washington County's leading news and information source, and one of the reasons for that is because of the great partnerships we have with so many entities around town, including our school districts and so forth. Next week, I'm going to bring in Barry and Shannon Glass from the Barnhill Center, and they're going to talk a little bit about the Smithsonian exhibit and the Century of Simon. So make sure you tune in there. And for those of you who are subscribers, thank you very much. We appreciate you wanting to be a part of our team and being a part of our team. After all, we're here for you, to provide you with the service of letting you know what's going on in the community. So if you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're not, it's easy to do. And I'll tell you what, a subscription even makes a great Christmas present. So all you got to do is pick up the phone, call 979-836-7956. Again, 979-836-7956. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you again, Brooke. I hope everybody's having a very happy holiday season, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.